Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Illa, and I am from the Consumer and Investor Office at the Securities Commission Malaysia. Welcome to today's InvestSmart Online Series webinar. Today's webinar is on investing with the Shariah-Compliant Equity Crowdfunding. First of all, we would like to thank you for taking the time to be here today. Next. We are pleased to have with us today Mr. Wan Dazric from Ethis Malaysia to present on the topic investing with the Shariah-Compliant Equity Crowdfunding. Allow me to share a brief background on Mr. Dazric. Wan Dazric is the CEO of the Ethis Malaysia, an Islamic fintech startup with a regional presence that aims to uplift humanity through financial technology. Ethis is a Shariah-compliant equity crowdfunding platform provider that is recognized by the SC. Dazric has a vast experience in the areas of organization and large-scale transformation initiative, as well as startup ventures building initiatives, given the various roles he has undertaken professionally. He has experience in areas of corporate entrepreneurship and innovation-led transformation initiatives that includes multi-stakeholders' interests. Dazric also is involved in startup ecosystem buildings efforts as he forges multi-stakeholders collaboration for the entrepreneurship-related sectors and relevant startup innovation capabilities in key industries. Beyond entrepreneurship, his expertise lies in the areas of transformation and growth, as well as change management, given his previous work in large-scale transformation projects with various multinationals and GLCs of Malaysia. Now, please stay tuned till the end of the session, for we will be having a short Q&A session followed by the pop quiz session. Next slide. Please do follow us on our social media platform for useful information on investing and latest updates on our initiatives. Now, I will pass over to Mr. Dazric to share his presentation, Investing with the Shariah-Compliant Equity Crowdfunding. Over to you, Mr. Dazric.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Assalamualaikum and a very good day to everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to send my thank you for Security Commission and the team who's working on the InvestSmart to invite me today to speak about the equity crowdfunding, but specifically on equity crowdfunding, Shariah-compliant platform. I would share some slides if that's okay. So I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, I'll make a start. So basically, I'll go through what Ethis is and what we do in Malaysia, or in fact in the fintech space. But for most of you have your phones with you, or rather you have a web browser with you. Maybe if I could start off by knowing you a little bit, just this one time, just to understand where you're from and what you want to do. Sorry, what you want to know from today. I've got a very generic content, but also I wanted to play to the demographic of the audience here. So if you could, you can do two ways. One, perhaps you could do your QR code here. Sorry, just scan the QR code, and then I'll get some inputs from you. There's actually two questions from there. Or alternatively, you can go to menti.com and type this code number 5181. 3682. I repeat, 51813682, or you can go through this QR code. I leave this QR code in the next subsequent slide, but what essentially will happen is that I will actually get your inputs here. So this is real time, I guess, as you guys are inputting this, and I can see in terms of what demographics you are from and what you would like to know from today. So alhamdulillah, I see, there's part of you investors, some of you are general public, just want to know about equity crowdfunding, and I guess portion of you are in the fintech ecosystem, so that's great to know. Just moving on from today, what you guys would like to know on, and I guess this is still continuing to be populated. Most of you would like to know more about crowdfunding. Yeah, there's a common theme around return and risk and investment plan, technologies, and all sorts. Continue on to do that. I'll capture some of this point, and I think I'll articulate some of this point during the Q&A session as well. Yeah, so crowdfunding, investment, risk, returns. So that seems to be the key terminology or common theme of today. Okay, you guys can still see my slide screen, I hope. Um, I'll just give a quick intro in terms of what we do.
Sorry, sorry, your slides, your screen was not shared.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, this is toggling around. Oh, sorry. Yes, apologies. I didn't see that. Okay, you can see my screen now?
Yep, can see.
Okay, perfect. So just broadly speaking, I'll just quickly go through this. Like what Ela mentioned earlier, I think we are pretty much a fintech company. In Malaysia, we actually a recognized market operator to do equity crowdfunding. There's actually 10 players in the equity crowdfunding space so far, and we're actually one of them. And we are the first one that are Sharia compliant in that regard. And I'll let you know what that means later. But our mission and vision is very clear. I think this is what Ela was alluding to earlier. So we are in the game of circulating of capital, and capital here with regards to investments or investments opportunity. Depending on which stakeholder lens you're using, if you're an investor, it's pretty much an investment play. But if you're in the business segment, business owners, issuers, and stuff, it's pretty much a fund raising play. Raising play. So we believe in the creating an impactful circulation of capital in the investment or fundraising to the economy. Thing that is actually booming. And I'll share some stats from the Security Commission as well in terms of what's the landscape look like. How does this impact you in terms of your investment diversification portfolios, or from a business standpoint, fundraising opportunities as you go to scale, specifically in the Malaysian landscape? Um, Before that, just a brief introduction again about Ethis, where we originate from and how we got here into this space. We started in early 2015 in Singapore, but Alhamdulillah, over time, over the next couple 2 years up until 2018, a lot of our traction actually was in Indonesia, in the loan base or P2P crowdfunding, and I'll illustrate that later in a subsequent slide. And as of late last year, in 2020, Alhamdulillah, again we've got the license from the Security Commission to operate in the equity crowdfunding space. And this is something that I wanted to focus a bit for the audience today. And I think based on the inputs that you share, a lot of you wanted to know more about crowdfunding, also the investment opportunities in the crowdfunding space. You can actually get this information, whether it's through the Security Commission website, se.com.my. Also, you might see some of the articles that have been published in the mainstream media. What essentially it means over the last 3 or 4 years, the crowdfunding space, whether it's P2P or equity, is actually booming. And as a matter of fact, in 2020, the take up rate, or rather the growth rate for the equity crowdfunding space, or crowdfunding space specifically, have risen to 43%. And we see this momentum continuously growing. Even though we're in Malaysia, we're going through lockdown, the COVID-19 period for the most of 2020, there still seem a good trajectory in terms of crowdfunding, in terms of crowdfunding as a means, or rather alternative means, to fundraise or to invest. And this is what I wanted to allude to earlier. So this is actually coming up from the Security Commission report in 2020. If you see the conventional of fundraising from corporate bonds, from IPOs and VCs and PEs, the trajectory seems to have slowed down a bit. But what interesting to see in the ECF P2P financing space, it has risen to what I've mentioned earlier, 43%. I wouldn't want it to illustrate or deep dive into all these slides, but if you see, there's a lot of prospect in terms of investment opportunities or fundraising opportunities in the crowdfunding space. And this is likely to continue for 2021. And we've seen, in spite of the downturn of the economy, in spite of the prolonged lockdown period, alternative financing through crowdfunding is actually a good way of diversifying portfolios if you view from an investor's lens. Okay, I have alluded this earlier and I didn't want to drain so much on this. So we are actually a Shariah-compliant equity crowdfunding platform, recognized and approved by security commissions. I suggest if you are looking to crowdfund, whether it's loan-based, P2P, or equity-based in what we do check the Security Commission's website. There's only few recognized players out there. I've mentioned earlier, Ethis is actually 1 out of the 10. There's only 10 in Malaysia so far. And we are regulated. We are actually regulated under security commissions, and this is to ensure, compliance. There's no, scam. There's no misrepresentation for both issuers and investors, and we are adhered to all the compliance and regulations that is imposed by the Security Commission. Broadly speaking, what Ethis do, we aside from investment. In Indonesia, I've alluded to earlier, we have a license to SC equivalent in Indonesia, OJK, who provided loan-based or P2P-based offering for our, sister brand in Ethis Indonesia. In Malaysia, we have a charity digital platform that's called Global Sedekah. So charity here is not investment per se, it's pretty much donation. So this is what we mean, when we go into fintech offering, beyond investment, beyond loans, we also do charity. So Global Sedekah, if you want to Google that, it's another charity-based platform that we actually promote to stakeholders. Aside from the current offerings, we are actually looking into developing ancillary fintech offerings. What that means, we started to look into robo-advisors, investment management, and to some extent also exploring opportunities around getting digital bank license in the next couple of months or years to come. So there's a lot of offerings that Ethis are looking at in terms of serving the greater community beyond what it is now. And of course, we are legal and Sharia compliant. So aside from the Security Commission regulation that we need to adhere to, we are also very much accountable or responsible with regards to Sharia matters. And alhamdulillah, we were also in a good relation with ISRA, and also a Sharia consultant and legal advisors in that respect. So just to share a bit, if you're an investor, if you are business owners and stuff like that, what are you actually looking at when we're talking about scale of SDGs beyond profit and returns and stuff like that? Just to share you some stats, and this is what we're trying to emulate in Malaysia, just based on what we have done successfully in Indonesia with regards to social housing. Alhamdulillah, so far we have actually crowdfunded close to 2,000 investment in Indonesia and currently looking into Malaysia from investors across 47 countries. What that means in terms of numbers and figure, we're looking at 13 million bridging fund that we have successfully helped business to create 9,700 houses that impacted about 39,000 people, and this is predominantly in Indonesia. And this is what we're trying to emulate in Malaysia. This is something that is brewing So if you are investing or looking to investing in the property space, specifically social housing space, this is something that is big that the Ethis are planning to take on in the next months or years to come. I wouldn't drain on this slide. So this is pretty much an ecosystem play. What we do beyond the equity crowdfunding space, we are also one way or another trying to advocate or promote the fintech ecosystem, or rather the Islamic, fintech product ecosystem as well. And we have done this over time from 2015, and inshallah, it's still going to continue to do that for the next or many months to come. And also, we don't do this alone. Coming up from a startup, and we're currently in the scale up state. Alhamdulillah, we've got a lot of collaborative partners from similar industries, fintech industry, organizations. Security Commission has been a good alliance to us as the ecosystem is growing. We also do share inputs, insights, data points to see how we could actually grow this space as well. And obviously the banks, the organizations, the associations who also do provide from time to time feedback and input and areas of collaboration as we grow the fintech space. Okay, I'll run through the next couple of 10 minutes or so, the next couple of slides on what actually crowdfunding is. I assume most of you have come across this term or pretty much aware of this term, but fundamentally, it is actually an online platform that connects investors to businesses who are looking to do fundraising or investment that mutually benefit each other. Ethis Malaysia, our slight differentiator is actually the Shariah-Compliant. And I've mentioned earlier, aside from Security Commission regulation, we also abide to the principle of Islamic finance or Sharia. And this is something that I think it's worth illustrating in terms of what do we mean by Sharia compliant or Islamic finance philosophy, broadly speaking. And then this is what I've mentioned earlier. When we say about Islamic finance, Sharia compliant, it's really about the principle of being equitable and fair. And equitable and fair here with regards to the stakeholders that are primarily involved in the transaction, which is the business owner, which is usually the issuer if you're looking in a giving equity lens. Secondly, the financier, which means the investor. So both of the issuer and investor already have a locked-in target, so to speak, and they agree on the profit sharing ratio. So returns obviously fluctuate over time, and we speak about risks and rewards, business performance and profitability. What that means for both issuer and investor, exceptional cases of negligence, fraud, etc., both actually share the burden together. And this is taking from a layman's standpoint, right? If you look into the conventional loan, so to speak, typically the investors or rather the financier has a slightly advantage in terms of getting that returns, regardless of the conditions of the borrower's performance. And this is something that we don't propagate in Islamic finance. But over time, we realize this actually benefiting the stakeholders broadly when we speak about musharakah, when we speak about Islamic finance being Sharia compliance and of sorts. Currently in Malaysia, and this is from an investor's lens, if you are looking into these four areas, this is something that Ethis Malaysia are currently put forward or being aggressive about. I've spoken a bit about the property landscape, specifically on the social housing. Times are hard. Property landscape is hard, but when we speak about social housing, this is trying to innovate the landscape of property investments. And inshallah, over the next couple of months or towards the end of the year, this is something that we're going a bit more aggressive in the market. Agriculture sector is something that we are also pushing with regards to fundraising and investment opportunities. If you see in our platform, which I could share later, ethis.co/my, you can see some of the campaigns are actually geared in the agriculture space, whether it's about employability, whether it's about harvesting, livestock, embedding IoTs into farming, agriculture. That is something that the public campaigns that we're helping to fundraise at this point of time. Certainly, a lot of the RMOs or crowdfunding space are in this place with regards to SME, startups, and MSME, and they are what I consider as the common players since a crowdfunding comes into play 4 or 5 years ago. Naturally, because it's an alternative financing. If you're a small business operator, you look to fundraise. Crowdfunding gives you that alternative aside from banking. And then the fourth one is something specific to Ethis at this point of time. When we speak about social financing, how do we bridge the donation, the goodwill, and also the investment into one and amplify for the greater good. And this is something that we're still looking to explore in the next couple of months, inshallah. I think most of you are aware of this, and I didn't want to drain on this so much. But typically in the Malaysian landscape, when we speak about ECF or crowdfunding per se, or investments broadly, there's three types of investors, so to speak. The first one is retail investors. We call it retail because it's like a shopping. Investors who are looking to dabble into investments, looking into what kind of portfolios, what kind of industries, tech, and so forth, are dabbling into small type of investments. Are usually are retail investors. Typically, you're looking about no more than 5,000K to invest. Sorry, 5,000 ringgit to invest in a specific business. And this segment of investors are booming in Malaysia. There's a big segment of retail investors, and over time, I think they will grow. And I guess this is where the opportunity of investments gradually pick up. Also, this type of investors are playing more to the businesses of micro startups who are looking to scale. Second portion, I think a lot of us commonly know also the angel investors. The slightly more bigger ticket item. This is a criteria, so to speak, that's been defined in Malaysia. Annual total income of around or slightly more than 180,000K, or a household of more or no more than 250K for a period of year. They technically would actually invest more, and the type of appetite of angel investors are looking for business issuers who are in the micro, small, medium enterprises who are looking to scale. And obviously, if you're in the startup space, you're looking to do series of funding, you'll probably be a bit more familiar with the VCs and PEs out there. And this is what we consider as accredited and sophisticated investors or institutional investors to some extent. So these are just the three common types of investors that are in the market. There is in the market, or specifically in Malaysia. Okay, very briefly, and I'm almost towards the end of my sharing, but I'm just going to focus down a bit with regards to crowdfunding, what is essentially it means, and how does that look like if you are a business owner to go into issuance campaign, and if you are an investor, how does this actually affect you, and what kind of considerations you're looking at. So through a crowdfunding campaign, entrepreneurs typically make a limited time offer for their equity, right? So once the exercise is completed, the investors become a shareholder of your entity, of that company's entity. And obviously that will be associated with rights and benefits, risk and rewards, and stuff like that. The next couple of slides is not exclusively for Ethis Malaysia. This is actually implied by security commissions to all the RMO, the recognized market operators. If you are a company who are looking to fundraise through equity crowdfunding, you have to be a Malaysian registered company, whether it's Sdn Bhd, Private Limited, Unlisted, or LLP. The second criteria is that your paid up capital cannot be more than RM 10 million ringgit for you to be able to crowdfund into the public campaigns or crowdfunding campaigns. Now, if you have an audited account, as of March 2021, Security Commission have actually allowed you to raise or fundraise up to RM 20 million. And this has actually grown over time. When we first started, it was 5 million. In 2020, it was 10 million. And the latest news that we've got so far is actually 20 million. But if you don't have any audited accounts, you are relatively new, and this is play more to the startup space, you can fundraise still, but only up to 500,000. So these are the two demarcation of criteria, depending on what stage of business you're at. If you're looking to fundraise in the ECF, this would be the criteria you'll be looking at. Again, I re-emphasize this is not exclusively to Ethis. It's also implied to 9 others crowdfunding platform operators in the equity crowdfunding space. I wouldn't drain on this slide so much. So what happens is actually when you appoint a ECF operator, in this case Ethis, will do a due diligence process. Due diligence here is to ensure that you comply to the security commissions. On Ethis part, on top of that, we also do what I consider as buyers beware due diligence. We do have an investment committee that also looks into Sharia compliance, investment appetites, and risks and rewards before we proceed to do the public campaign. Between the due diligence and public campaign, we also, to some extent, do advise in terms of the pre-marketing activities, the duration of the campaign, when should we launch the campaign, how's the narrative going to look like, is there any kind of improvement that needs to be made to your pitch deck, or any sort of documentations and publication that goes out to investors before we launch the public campaign. Typically, public campaign runs between 2 weeks to 3 months, 15 to 90 days, depending on the amount that you're looking to raise, depending on what kind of business you do, and depending on what type of investors are probably hooked to your businesses. This is something we actually also would be able to advise, but ultimately the business owners or the issuer would decide in terms of how long the campaign duration and the quantum of amount. While we note that a lot of the post-campaign activities in terms of updating back to issuers, investors, lies in the business owners, from time to time, we do also help updating our pool of investors, and help coordinate that effort for our issuers. So typically, we after 2 weeks or 30 days, we do provide update from Ethis standpoint to the investors who have invested in the campaigns. Okay, fairly quickly. I don't want to to go on this so much, but I think a lot of you probably have understood, if it's a Sharia compliant, a lot of things that we don't actually condone when we speak about Islamic finance is the concept of riba, or interest rate of interest based on loans or debt. What that means is that when we go through crowdfunding platform, again, this is exclusively to Ethis, we can't do preference share just because of this concept. What we have actually work out a mechanism of what I consider as a target or defined profit ratio for investors as well as issuers. Commonly in Ethis, this is the two type of mechanism that we subscribe. One is what we consider as unilateral promise ordinary shares. Fundamentally, what that means is actually before an investor or business agree to do fundraising or investment, there's already a pre-arranged exit plan. What that means is actually company, the issuer, already commit to redeem back within a certain period of time with a certain target profit that have been planned for. what does this do for the investor is that it can give a bit of a target, or rather a security in terms of how long are you going to be with this company, what kind of returns are you looking at, and I guess this could play to the investors' hand of forecasting in terms of the growth or profitability. Secondly, it's actually what we can call the RD shares, the alternative ordinary shares. What that means is it's perpetual. So while the earlier one, there's actually a target plan, for this one, there's no pre-arranged exit plan. This does not mean that an investors cannot exit, but what it does is actually it gives a leeway for the businesses or the investors to actually share the risks and rewards over a perpetual time, a long term, basically. And I guess along the way, you can still negotiate whether to exit or pretty much to buy, or if you're an issuer, to buy back, or if investors you want to pretty much cash out. So the key differentiator here is actually the earlier one. The Wadi just now is actually have a target exit plan, whereas this one is perpetual. Both you can still have exit plan, but this one is just pretty much in the concept of continuity. So yeah, just to reemphasize, from Ethis standpoint, being a Sharia compliant, we can't do preference share. These are the two common mechanisms that we worked out when we speak about equity crowdfunding or deal curation. Okay, I'm towards the end. I assume all of you would already know this, but if you're not, and this is something that we always preach and re-emphasize over and over again, is that these four elements. How do you actually attract investors to your campaign if you are a business owner? Secondly, if you are an investor, what you are actually supposed to look at, right? Obviously, the first key one is with regards to the growth potential or revenue stream. When you fundraise, when you crowdfund, these are only the two lands that you need to consider. You either invest on the revenue stream that gives you income over time, or you invest on the potential, which is pretty much the growth. So you, one way or another, you have to demonstrate this to the investors so that the investors are able to understand and then invest. Secondly, obviously, this is a bit more tactical in terms of the dividend structure. How do you want to appeal to the investors, and what is the lucrative, or rather the sweet spot for businesses to give equity out, and then for the investors to buy. So this is pretty much common risks and rewards, basically. The two that is a bit more specific to Ethis, and we also emphasize on this one, and this is just because the common pool of investors that we have, alhamdulillah, so far. I didn't illustrate this earlier, but just to share a bit, we have a demographic of investors not just in Malaysia, although our issuer, our businesses, the startup, micro SMEs are in Malaysia, but our investors reside in the different parts of the world. Singapore being one of the larger pool of investors that we have also Europeans, predominantly UK, who also invest in Southeast Asia and Malaysia. And the third large segment is actually the Middle East. So a lot of these investors, aside from the profitability, monetary values per se, they also consider the fact of the social impact. Social impact here, it could be in the form of environment, employability, inclusivity, and stuff like that. And this is why we also have that investment committee in place before we push to the public campaign, because all of these things, beyond the dividends, beyond the profitability, are also looked into consideration before we go to public. Because we want to make sure, and again, that is our pillar when we speak about impactful, sustainable projects and campaign. We are advocating that for the purpose of our issuer and also investors. And this is what I mentioned about the redemption period, conditions, what kind of structuring, target plan, exit strategy. This is also equally as important with the other four. Okay, I'm towards the end. And if you ask, why Ethis, if you want to know more, How do we differentiate ourselves with others beyond the equity crowdfunding space? First and foremost, we are Sharia compliant. Secondly, I've mentioned about the social impact and why the focus on social impact. A lot of our investors also beyond profitability. This concept of amal jariyah beyond donation, amplifying, multiplying good. Or I know if you recognize my hashtag behind that is circulate good. Is around that ethos of multiplying or amplifying impact. And obviously about the global network. It's not just Malaysia. Our projects also in Indonesia, but also we have a lot of investors or demographic from various demographic around the world. All right, so I'm towards the end. This is something that I'm just want to quickly to share. If you are a business owner, I'm not too sure if there's a lot of business owners in here and looking to fundraise. We are actually launching a strategic initiative program. It's pretty much an accelerator. We call it IFAT, the Impact Fundraise Accelerator Track. We are launching soon. If you are interested, you can register your interest here. You can go to this, link bit.ly, EM being Ethis Malaysia, IFAT, Impact Fundraise Accelerator Track. So bit.ly /EMIFET. So over time, we'll give you more updates and inputs. What is this accelerator about? But fundamentally, it's about making you aware if you're a business owner. How do you want to fundraise? How do you want to fundraise equitably and fair? And then also we put you, I guess we coach you to some extent before you go to the public fundraising. So if this is something that you want to pursue or explore, I encourage you to go or rather to register to this link. Okay, sorry, I got a slide. So what does that accelerator looks like? It's pretty much we're looking for about 30 SME startups who are looking to fundraise, and this is what we mean by capacity build or groom you before you go to the ECF fundraising campaign. And I guess again, this is the link. If you're looking to explore fundraising with Ethis through ECF fundraising, I encourage you to register your interest. Otherwise, if you want to be, or rather you're an investors and trying to explore the crowdfunding, I'll encourage you to register here. It's EFIN EM. Actually, it stands for Ethis Impact Fundraise. I can't remember, investment network. Yes, Ethis Malaysia or something like that. So over time, we'll give you more updates about our projects, our inputs, what's coming up, webinars like these, community engagements that we can actually get you on board. These are our social media platform. We do from time to time update our social media, Ethis Malaysia. And to know more, visit our website ethis.co/my. And if you have specific inquiries, just go to equity@ethis.co. Yeah, I'm almost towards the end. I'll just share a bit on our actual platform, just to give you a bit of a look and feel. How does that look like in real platform situation? Okay, sorry. I hope you can see my browser basically. So this is our website, the ethis.co/my. You can find all the details here. I'll just zoom in some of the campaigns that have gone public or coming soon. We got one in renewable energy. There's two coming soon in the agriculture sector. And if you are investors, this is where you can, I guess, know more about the campaign. What is it about? What's the trajectory plan? Who are the business owners and what they are looking to do? And there's a lot more information that you can see for you to make a decision making in terms of investment opportunities or otherwise. If you are a business owner and you're looking to fundraise for your business, I've spoken about this, but this is a bit more very specific in terms of what are the criteria. And these are pretty much the steps that we're looking into for you to be part of the public campaign. And you can go through all of these. There's some FAQs. And if you are ready, you just click sign in now, and we capture your information, and our investment team will have a further discussion with you on that front. So yeah, I'm pretty much done. Thank you so much of listening to me for the last 40 minutes or so. But yeah, I'm happy to take any questions that you have now for the next 10 minutes or so, inshallah. So I'll pass back to Ila to help me moderate. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Desrick, for that very educational presentation. So now we will take some time so now we will proceed with the Q&A session. So we have a lot on Slido at the moment. So, the first question is, how much minimum capital needed to get started in crowdfunding?
Good question. So depending on how you look at, and to be honest with you, there's no minimum or ceiling price, so to speak. But again, it is pretty much the question of what are you looking to do of fundraising. Now I know what I mentioned. You can actually fundraise up to 20 million, but if you're just a startup who are just started, for example, it doesn't make sense for you to raise up to 20 million. Because the portion that you need to consider if you're an investor is that the valuation of your company. And based on that evaluation, is actually how much equity you can give out for the investment that you're looking at. So in answering your question, it really depends at this point of time, what are you doing with your businesses, how much money you're looking for the businesses to fundraise. And obviously the technicalities of SE, you can't have capital of 10 million of sorts. More than 10 million of the regulation, but below that, it is really up to the businesses. And that's also just to ensure investors have security for your businesses.
Okay. The next question is, what is the percentage of fee that you charge the startups who want to raise funds on your platform?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and then I could speak broadly and maybe on behalf of other RMO also. Typically, the market rate is between 6 to 10%, depending on, and this is based on the successful raise amount, and depending on how much effort that is required for operator like us to do campaigns. What I mean by that is actually, if we need to help curate advice before we go to campaign, and also the quantum and all of that in consideration, then only we come to an agreement or a landing in terms of that range between 6 to 10. I also believe that a lot of our peers in the RMO also are looking into that market rate of 6 to 10%.
Okay. So a question from Victor. Can you share your plan and roadmap in the next 2 years from Ethis in terms of ECF products?
Okay, good question. So ECF, to be honest with you, like I've mentioned earlier, SE is also a good friend of us in terms of ecosystem building. When we speak about ECF, it's never a case of only Ethis. It's also in consideration of other market operators, but also in consideration of the landscape. Landscape here being the investors pool and the business pool that we're looking at. And why I say that is actually, initially when SE started with the 5 million ceiling, traditionally the startups who are looking to fundraise is the one that pull into crowdfunding. Now, what we have seen is actually, because we have gone up to 20 million in terms of fundraising, you'll see a new entrant from the medium enterprises who are looking to fundraise to crowdfunding. And this could be for many reasons, right? If they're looking to do IPO, for example, right? So fundraising valuation through crowdfunding could tee the medium enterprises to go to IPO, right? So in answering your question, I can't say for sure in terms of what would be the strategy, but in terms of what I've mentioned earlier, we probably will still focus on the four verticals: the agriculture, the property, the micro, small, medium enterprises that is a bit more tech driven. I guess that's a lot of potential there, and that's what our investors resonate with. And the fourth one is with regards to what I'm saying, the circulating or amplifying good lah, from the donors, the donation to financing. How do we bridge them and amplifying good? So that's probably another product innovation that we are looking at over the next couple of 2 years.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so Azrina is asking, as an ECF operator, how have you fared during the pandemic, and how have you helped vulnerable segments of society via ECF?
Yeah, that's an interesting point of view. So, and I guess it's what I was alluded to earlier with regards to Security Commission statistic of the take up, the trajectory and stuff like that. As an ECF player, we see there's a take up from the issuer, micro businesses, and I guess I could resonate with what's happening in in the current period of lockdown and stuff like that. Right? A lot of businesses are struggling. The micro, small, medium enterprises, obviously, getting funding through conventional banks and stuff like that is also getting a bit more harder. So alternative financing as crowdfunding, whether it's P2P, equity or charity, forever, it becomes a bit more mainstream in that sense. So you'll see a confluence of this ecosystem. Sorry, players or business owners are looking into crowdfunding. So on that note, it's growing. What you seeing in the investors pool is that they are also open to invest or diversify their portfolio lah. This may not be the case for PEs and VCs, the accredited ones, but angel investors and retail investors are able to pick up lah. And this is where I'm coming back to the second point in terms of the impact, right? And this also resonates back to the current pool of investors that we have. They might, invest small amount, big amount, but the considerations of employability, for example, the considerations of, in the case of agriculture, farmers, how do we make sure they're employable over time? Harvesting periods coming soon, end of the year with the lockdown, for example. This type of things are part of the mindset of our investors also, and we're cognizant of that fact. So as much as we can, aside from just being a platform provider, so to speak, we do dabble into the insights also, just to make sure that the value proposition for our investors and also issuers connecting. We don't have I can't share the data points as of yet because it's still brewing as we're growing along with the pandemic, the lockdown period and stuff like that. Hopefully, inshallah, by next year, I'll be able to share like how we do the social financing in Indonesia of that 39,000 people that we have managed to support, to give them roofs and shelter through crowdfunding in Indonesia. So I hope we could emulate that in Malaysia, inshallah, next year.
Is urban farming also in the agriculture investment plan?
Yes, and I would take a pinch of salt to that in terms of if I'm wearing an investor's hat, if you could infuse things around technology, IoTs, data insights and stuff like that, I think that is a lucrative market that investors are looking at. So yeah, urban farming could potentially be that also, in consideration of scarcity of land, whatever that's happening at this point of time. So yeah, but take it with a pinch of salt.
Okay, and Tommy is asking, any risk management plan to protect the crowdfunding investor?
Yeah, I'm taking it on two fronts. As much as we could advise, we don't have a crystal ball with us to forecast or project what's coming up in 3 years, 5 years, and stuff like that for that specific industry or portfolio. As best as what we could do as a platform provider, we disclose as much as information for you as an investor to be able to make that informed decision. And this is where we quite, and I guess Security Commission also is quite particular about this with regards to transparency and also with regards to non-misrepresentation to the data that we put in the public platforms.
Okay, so we only have we can only answer one more question. So the last question is from Victor. What's the average crowdfunding period before retail investors can redeem on their investment?
Depending, sorry, okay, I'll try to answer in two lengths. If you're asking about the crowdfunding period, like I've mentioned earlier, campaigns can go between 2 weeks to 90 days. So that's usually when a project or rather a businesses are putting to public for people to invest. So that's one. With regards to return, this is actually, and you can go to the website that I've shared earlier, and you can see the details of the project, and you can see what's the payback period and stuff like that. And this is very specific to the businesses. Some can go to 2 years, some can go to 5 years, some target plans are defined, some are not. But I guess we make that quite public and transparent, again, in the view of to make sure that you can make an informed decision to invest or not. But typically, if you ask me now, it's usually between 2 to 3 years for equity crowdfunding or equity fundraising.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone, for all the questions that you have submitted. I know there's still more. If anyone has any more questions they'd like to ask Mr. Dazric, he shared an email, the equity@ethis.co. So yes, please feel free to email your questions to there if you have any other further questions you want to ask. Thank you everyone for joining us for this session. Thank you, Mr. Dazric, for speaking in our webinar. Don't forget, if you wish to watch this webinar again, we will upload the webinar on our YouTube channel in due course. Do check out our previous webinar sessions on our YouTube channel. I would also like to take this opportunity to remind everyone to beware of clone firm scams. Fraudsters may use names, logos, and other details of a legitimate firm to promote bogus investment schemes via social media, promising extraordinary high returns with little risk. Also remember, never deposit your money into personal bank accounts. If you are unsure whether you're dealing with a licensed or registered entity and/or individual, do not hesitate to contact the SC. So with that, I would like to say stay safe, stay at home, and if you need to be out, always maintain physical distancing. Hope to see everyone again at our next webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Dazric.
Thank you. Stay safe all. Take care.